in addition to miscalculating the proletariat who didn't respond in the way Marx predicted. Gramsci and the rest of the communists of his day, and even now, thought Christianity was the mortal enemy of socialism and a principal underpinning of what they thought to be cultural hegemony. They believed Christian teaching was of the utmost importance in the traditional family along with the role of the father, and it was preventing their proletariat revolution. Thus, these things had to be destroyed. In terms of the destruction of Christianity, ask yourself this question: who benefits? Again, the short answer is Satan. Look for his fingerprints all over what's happening to America. To achieve his goals, Gramsci advocated the infiltration of cultural Marxists into the media, entertainment, courts, and politics. Sound familiar? I would have to add the educational system, too. But understanding Gramsci is central to understanding what's happening in the United States today and why, especially as regards cancel culture. Since you can't swing a dead possum in Washington, D.C. without hitting a Marxist. Read up on the subject of how Obama put communists in important positions during his administration by Obama's method/plan of seeding the government with people with a Marxist orientation. This signals us as to the ultimate strategy of the left in their attempt to take over America one subtle little victory at a time. An alarming factoid is that approximately 42% of Americans have a positive attitude about socialism. Unfortunately, whoever Pew Research asked about this opinion poll were likely sorely misinformed about what socialism is and what it has meant to the world. However, what happens to America when people get further brainwashed and that figure crosses the line of 50%? Christianity, America, and the nuclear family are under constant attack by leftist politicians, the propagandist media, Hollywood trolls, Black Lives Matter, and leaders of the Democrat Party. Start thinking for yourself. Don't let CNN do it for you, and see if you, too, can come to the reality that the emperor has no clothes on. Start standing for America and American values, and disregard as the enemy's plan all attempts to denigrate this republic. Children must be taught the same, and parents must storm the school boards to force anti-American values out of the curricula whether the FBA targets them or not. Stop calling men by feminine pronouns and women by masculine pronouns, regardless of what mentally confused people want. We can't let the Marxists reform the English language as part of their plan to redraw our culture. As soon as possible, vote the leftists, those who want to teach critical race theory and hatred of America, out and find patriots to serve in those positions. And since Attorney General Merrick Garland has a daughter who is married to a man whose company sells CRT material to schools nationwide, it's clear why this is being pushed on our kids. So Garland needs to be eliminated from Biden's cabinet and legal authority as soon as possible, and no longer allowed to be a tool for the left. With one-party rule, our system of checks and balances was threatened, and the Marxists know it. According to Bill Connor's article in the Charleston Mercury, Gramsci's influence is raising its ugly head each time we see the demeaning of American history, the importance of fatherhood and the nuclear family, Christian ideals, the nation's founders, principles, and traditional cultural icons of our society. Since leftists can't see anything but racism every place they look, before long they will be labeling Audie Murphy, most decorated soldier of World War II, as a racist because he was deliberately killing people who were different from him when at the age of 19 he stood on a burning tank and single-handedly thwarted an enemy combined arms attack, tanks and infantry, for which he was awarded the Medal of Honor. In point of fact, Gramsci's writing was published throughout Europe by the 1950s, some 13 years after he died in prison, but it was not translated and brought to the U.S. until the 1970s with the help of Joseph Buttigieg. Yes, father of Pete Buttigieg, gay former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, who mouth-kissed his so-called husband on national television during the 2020 Democrat presidential campaign and is now failing miserably as Secretary of Transportation in the Biden administration. Gramsci's ideas dominate the progressive left and are at the root of what we're seeing in modern-day America. Progressives, Democrats, socialists, progressives, communists, all feed at the same trough, no longer seem compelled to hide their true identity with a nom de plume. They admit openly to being socialists, but still feel it necessary to add a more palatable and disarming term by calling themselves Democrat Socialists. Prefacing what they really are with a term we all support says they don't believe we the people have enough sense to figure out that a socialist by any other name is still subscribing to the dark and treacherous teaching of Karl Marx and seek the same total control over people as manifested in the former Soviet-dominated police state of Russia. None of what the radical left is doing today has anything to do with racism. As we established above, it is simply their weapon of choice to spread the principles with the intent to lead up to a communist revolution meant to destroy America, turn us into a secular socialist nation, and establish Gramsci's alternate cultural hegemony to do so. For example, people of color are now the darlings of the left, and all white people are horrible because they are by the left's definition racist oppressors. Branding all white people as racist oppressors makes about as much sense as branding all black people as oppressed. You have to wonder why people don't look at Oprah, Michelle Obama, most of the NBA players, Ben Carson, or Denzel Washington to see how oppressed blacks are. By the way, didn't we fight a very destructive civil war once upon a time to change the practice of oppression? Yes. The Republicans in northern states got upset because the Democrat-dominated southern states wanted to be free to live their lives the way they wanted, a way that was totally legal at that time and was the way the world worked back then. The North objected in a violent way because they had for decades wanted to destroy slavery and eventually made war against men, women, and children of the South by starving them, burning their homes and crops in a scorched earth tactic carried out by a man named William T. Sherman. The Southern soldier would say he didn't fight to preserve slavery, but for the rights of states to have their own laws and slaves, as agreed at the founding of the country. Today's activists squawk about slavery to resurrect the passion that was killed more than a century and a half ago. Fortunately, there's a tiebreaker still available to hear from the horse's mouth about why the South fought the war, and an interview with a former Confederate general, Julius Howell, done while he was still alive. But in fairness, all the violence against the South was done before the 14th Amendment was enacted, which says the government cannot take away your life, liberty, or property without due process of law.